Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are really excited here at MSAN to bring you such an amazing webinar. We hope that you get to learn a lot about the reason why you need an insurance during your PCS, renter's insurance, all of that stuff. We have an expert today with us. They will be talking to us about all of those things, the differences, and also educate us more about the things that are needed that sometimes we don't take in consideration. So I am really excited to have Mr. Palmer from Offers Insurance with us. And like I said, he'll be giving us all the information. And if you have any questions, please feel free to chat on the side. I will be keeping track of all the comments. At the end of the webinar, we will open for questions. I will unmute people, whoever wants to ask any questions. And we will draw two names at the end, and we will be giving away two $25 gift cards to Target. So I'm pretty excited. Like I said, I'm going to give it now to Mr. Palmer, who's going to start talking to us about the amazing stuff about having insurance when we PCS.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank everyone for joining me this evening. I truly appreciate you take time out of your busy day to, have a chat with me about insurance and PCS moves. I know it's not the most exciting topic for everybody, but it is an important one. So what I hope to do tonight is to give you guys a base knowledge, or at least a better understanding of insurance and how it may affect you, your home, your personal property, your auto, as well as how it'll affect and what you should look for while you potentially are moving this upcoming PCS season. So again, any questions that you have, put them in the chat. As again, like she said, we will open it up to questions at the end as well. So please let me know what I can do to help out, and we'll go ahead and get started. So first off, before I even get going, I should mention this. The information I'm about to give is going to be will be on a base level of insurance. Everyone's policy is going to be a little different. So just know that if your policy includes or excludes things that I'm talking about, or you're not sure, you should always check with your insurance professional about what your particular policy will cover with these. So just keep that in mind, that every company and every policy is a little different. So go ahead and jumping in. Why is an insurance important for all of you, and why should you care about it? The biggest thing with insurance is it's there to protect you, your family, against financial loss. And that financial loss can come in many forms. It could come to your home if there's a fire, a tornado, a hurricane, your personal property, inside your home, outside of the home, your auto if you're involved in an accident. Insurance is there to help repair, replace, or rebuild those items and bring you back whole, bring you back to the way you were prior to that accident, prior to that fire, prior to that hurricane, whatever the case may be. It's also there to defend against lawsuits. Those lawsuits could involve a number of things: dog bites, someone has a slip and fall accident at your house, you invite friends over, or maybe just the neighbor kid runs through the yard, it hurts themselves. Any type of auto accident that could occur, you're out driving around, accidentally hit somebody in a parking lot, on the street. It's there to help protect against any type of negligence or claim that may come your way in the event of just going through your daily life. It's not that you meant to do it, it just happens. So insurance is there to make sure you don't have to come out of pocket for those big accidents, those big claims to your home, to your personal property, to your auto. Further with that, if you own a home and you have a mortgage, it's required by your mortgage company. Part of the agreement with having a mortgage is to keep insurance on the home, so having insurance is extremely important. As well, each state, wherever you live, generally requires some degree of auto insurance that be kept on your home, on your auto. So therefore, it helps you get your car registered and keeps you in compliance with the state. So insurance is important for many reasons. First one, though, I want to get into is the home insurance. What's on the policy, what you should look for, what's covered, maybe better, more importantly, what's not covered. So that way you have a better idea of what's covered on your home as you move to your new location and you're buying a home, or maybe you're currently in a home that you own, and what you have, or maybe what you should look at to make sure is covered with that. So with home insurance, it typically covers any home that you live in, whether it's a single family home, a duplex, a triplex, or a quadplex, or a quadplex home. As long as you live in one of those units, you may rent out the other units, or you just might have a home you live in. Home insurance will cover that. Will cover that home along with the other parts of the home that are maybe occupied by someone else. The key there is owner occupied, and that can be sent as well to any secondary, seasonal, or vacation homes. You may not live there full time, but you do own that home and visit on occasion. Maybe the weekends, maybe for months out of the year, whatever it may be, home insurance is there to protect those as well. If any of you have a secondary or seasonal home and rent it out to others, say on a short-term basis, which occasionally happens, do make sure you contact your insurance company, because not all insurance companies like that, and there are often endorsements or items you need to put on there to make sure that you're in compliance with the company that you're with. But overall, the package, when you buy a home insurance policy, it covers a number of things. You get to pick some of them, but the majority of these items are built into the package, and that breaks down like this. The home itself, so the walls, the paint, the structure of the roof, the 2x4s, and so on. That's the first part of the home policy. Then any structure that's not attached to the home. Could be a garage that sets off from the house, maybe a fence. Personal property. Pretty much anything that goes in that moving pod or that moving truck and that you put into your home. Another way to look at it is if you took your home, flipped it upside down, and shook everything out, anything that falls out is probably going to fall into the personal property category of home insurance. Also on the policy is additional living expense. Now this is money set aside for you if you are in a home and it's, let's say, a fire happens and you have to move out, or a hurricane comes and damages your home and it's going to be 6 months before the repair occurs, tornado, and so on. That's money that will actually either put you up in a hotel or in a rental home, and at times provide for food above and beyond what you would normally have spent at home until you can get back on your feet and back in that house. And also, like we talked about earlier, the liability and medical. If someone slips and falls in your yard, down your stairs, a dog bite, things of that nature, home insurance provides protection of that as well. And each policy that you have should have, to some degree, coverages of all of those items, and they're built into the policy. As well, when you look to insure your home, if you guys are purchasing a new home or the one that you're in, you want to make sure that you insure your home at the replacement value of the home, not the market value. What I mean by that is if you maybe, say, live in California and your home you purchased for $800,000, $1 million, you might only have your house insured to $300,000 or $400,000 because of the value of the land is so much that you're purchasing more of the land than you are the home, just based on value. On the other side, you might live in an area of the country where you bought your home for $200,000 and you're insuring the home for $250,000. That's because the cost to rebuild the home is actually more than it would be to buy another home. So just make sure that, or just to make you aware that home insurance companies are going to base that number on a replacement value, not on what you purchased the home for. So if you're buying a new home and you're wondering why the insurance is different than what you're purchasing it for, that's the reason why. Is they're going to do a good analysis of your home to make sure they have the right replacement value on there. Now, we could go through a list of what's covered on the home, but most home policies have language that states something like this. Your home will be insured for everything unless excluded by the policy. So what that means is it's going to say, hey, we'll insure for anything you could almost potentially think of unless it's excluded in the language of the policy. So here's a list of the exclusions, which is a lot easier to go over than what's included on a home policy. First one is earthquake and earth movement. That is the first item right there that is not included on a home policy. There are ways to add some of these back in, we'll talk about in a second. But if you live in an area that is prone to earthquake and earth movement, you want to know that on the base policy, these items are not covered. Now, I put water damage here, and I should have put some water damage, and I apologize for that, because some water damage is covered under your home policy. Damage from, say, storms, damage from a pipe bursting in the wall is covered under a home policy. What's not covered is water damage from a flood. So once that water falls from the sky and touches the ground, your base policy that you have on your home will not cover the damage caused by groundwater, water that comes through the basement or through the foundation known as seepage, or water that backs up through the sewer and drains. So where water backup through the sewer and drains can occur is when, I've seen it happen in my neighborhood. We had a storm, I think 6 inches of rain in an hour or just a little over an hour, stressed the sewer system so much that it backed water up into the homes at the bottom of the hill where I live. So these things on a base policy are not covered when it comes to water. Other items, wear and tear or neglect. Let's say you have peeling paint on your house, or your shingles are 25, 30 years old, and there's been no damage to them, they're just old. If you call the insurance company and say, hey, my roof is old or my paint's peeling, can you fix that? They're going to say no. Unfortunately, that's not something that's covered. Those are all parts of home ownership or home maintenance. Those will be items that are covered and will not be covered on the policy, as well as power failure. If you have the power goes out in your neighborhood, there's no way that insurance company, well, I shouldn't say there's no way. The insurance company will not cover damage from a power failure without adding extra endorsements on there. War, nuclear hazard, government actions such as, I will say, a lien possession or I guess a repossession or some type of eminent domain. The government comes in and takes your house for whatever reason, not covered on the policy, as well as any intentional loss. And not that any of you would do this, but that's basically taking a gallon of gas and a match to your house. So any type of intentional loss like that will not be covered. With everything though, again, check with your insurance professional or check with your policy to see what is covered and what's not covered. Now, a lot of these items can be added back in. And here's some specific endorsements that I found that I think are important, or at least important to consider. The top one here, replacement cost. All of you should make sure that with your home, if you're purchasing a new home, with your new move or the home that you're in, that you have replacement value or a replacement cost endorsement for your home, for your roof, and for your personal property. This is extremely important because if you don't have these on there, your home will be settled what they call at actual cash value. And to give you an example of this, let's say you bought a TV 5 years ago. And with that TV that you purchased 5 years ago, you had, you'd say you spent $2,000 on it. Top of the line at the time, all the bells and whistles. Well, that TV today might be worth only $200-300. If any of you have been out to the stores lately, and I won't mention any of them by name, but I was just in one of those big retail stores and they were having 55, 65-inch televisions on sale for like $500-600. So if you have one of those TVs, you're not going to want to take the $300 or $400 that they're going to give you for your television that you bought 5 years ago. You want to go out and buy a top-of-the-line TV again. So having replacement cost on your personal property is important because the insurance will then allow you to go out and replace that as the same like, kind, or quality that you had prior to your loss. So a replacement cost on all of those items, the roof, the home, and personal property, are extremely important. The next endorsement to consider making sure you have on your home is the extended dwelling coverage. And what the extended dwelling coverage is going to give you, let's say your house is insured at $200,000. And you have 25%, or you have an extended dwelling coverage on there of 25%. What that's going to give you is $50,000 above the $200,000 that you have on the home for any cost overrun. So if you live in an area where there's been a hurricane or a tornado or a massive fire like that happened in California, the minute people start to rebuild, the value of the materials that they're buying goes up. Lumber goes up, shingles goes up, labor goes up. So you want to make sure you have an endorsement on there that gives you that cushion in case something very bad goes on. As well, other items that you might want to consider, there's something called ordinance or law coverage. I'm not going to get into it too deep, but those who have older homes, make sure that you have a ordinance or law coverage on the home. And what that is if there is let's say there's a kitchen fire and the city inspector comes in and says, hey, we can't, I'll sign off on the rebuild, but you need to update the electrical. The electrical wasn't part of the fire, but now has become, in a sense, part of the claim because they're not going to sign off on the work until it's done. So most policies will have 10% of home coverage, meaning that if you have a $200,000 home, you have $20,000 of coverage. But make sure that endorsement is on there. Check with your professional to see if it's necessary, your insurance professional to see if it's necessary, and it will help you with any of those extra costs that pop up during a home repair that you're not, anticipating. Flood insurance often is something that cannot be added to a policy via an endorsement. However, you can purchase flood insurance. Your insurance professional will be able to quote that out. All flood policies, or generally all, there's a few private companies out there, but most go through the government, through FEMA, and your insurance professional can find, usually has a way that they can get the quotes for you and get the policy issued. The administration all goes through the insurance companies, but at the end of the day, the policy is paid out by FEMA if there is a claim. Pricing is the same from agency to agency. So basically, if you took your house and quoted it with 25 different insurance companies, or with the 25 different agents, you'd get the same flood price because all prices are designated by the government. Just know, though, that that is available, and that covers any of that groundwater issue or that flooding issue that can occur with the home. Water sewer backup or sump pump overflow, again, this is another one that I think is vitally important. So with water backup or sump pump overflow, again, that is the water that comes through your drains into the lowest level of your home. This can occur in a storm. I've actually also seen it occur where a city went out and was working on the sewer and pushed water into people's homes. They kind of shrugged their shrugged their shoulders and said, I'm sorry, and went about their day. So if you have the option for it, some policies will have a minimum and maximum coverage of $5,000. That's all they offer. Most will offer higher than that. I would recommend a minimum coverage of $10,000. Talking to multiple claims representatives throughout the country, most claims don't get paid out under that. So by all means, make sure that you consider having water sewer backup. When I was quoting and doing sales, I made sure all my clients at least had the option, and I quoted it with the water backup, the replacement cost, and the extended dwelling coverage. Beyond that, we talked about it on a case-by-case basis, but those three items alone were very, very important. Finally, earthquake. If you live outside of California, most policies, most carriers will allow you to add earthquake back onto the policy via an endorsement. So there'll be extra money involved. Depending on where you live in the country, the price can change. If you're in an area, say like Ohio, that doesn't get much earth movement, it's very inexpensive. If you're out, say, in Washington, it can get a little more expensive depending on your zip code. California will often have a special company, kind of like flood, called the CEA, the California Earthquake Authority, and your insurance company or your insurance professional will know how to access that if earthquake coverage is needed. So those are endorsements to consider adding to the home. There are more, but I felt those were the most important ones. Now, this is a home policy declarations page. If you have one with you, great. You can kind of look at yours. It will be similar to this. So everybody's home declarations page is going to look similar to this. It won't look the same, but it will have the same information. At the top, you can see there's the policy number, the policy period, who's insured, the property that's insured, and so on. That's the who, what, when, where of the policy. Down below for home insurance, you can start to see the coverages. And again, everybody's going to lay it out differently. But coverage A will be the same. It'll be the dwelling or the home coverage. So at this home, it's about $340,000. Coverage B is the other structures. That's the detached portion of the home. That's $34,000. So anything that's not attached to the home would be covered under this. Personal property is $230,000 on this policy. Then your additional living expense and your liability and medical payments that go across. That's those basic areas of coverage, the package that you purchase. Below that or somewhere on your declarations page will be your deductible. That's listed there on this policy. You can see it, it says $1,500. This is your responsibility. This is the self-insured portion of the home policy, saying if there's a tornado, if there's a fire, I will pay $1,500 and the insurance company will pick up the rest. For some it's $1,000. For others, you might see a percentage deductible on there. That percentage could be 1%, 2%, 5%, depending on where you live. If it's let's say a 1% deductible, it's 1% of the home value. So in this case, it would be $3,402. So that would be your deductible if there was some kind of a claim on the policy. And then if you go below that, you can see the policy premium. That is generally the first page of your declarations page. So as you're going through and looking at it, you can start to see what your coverages are, and you can start to question, do I need more or less of something? When you get to the next page here, again, every company will have it a little differently, but they'll have it built in some way. You can start to see the other coverages that are included, such as the fungus coverage, the fire department coverage, the loss assessment, building ordinance and law. It goes on down the line. Down at those optional coverages, kind of in the middle of the page, that's where your endorsements are going to show up. Your personal property replacement, your extended dwelling coverage. Right there, you can see it's at 50%. So they've got 50% of their home value. They've got a kicker just in case there's a cost overrun. They'll get another 50% above what they currently have for insurance. The water sewer backup, this is called escape of water from sump. It's the same thing. They've got $15,000 of coverage on this and on down the line. So that's where you'll start to see the different items that you have. You can start to see, oh, do I have that water backup? Yes or no. It'll be in an optional coverage or in an endorsement section. Oh, do I have personal property replacement? It'll be in that area. Down below, then you start to see the discounts. There'll always be an area for discounts and surcharges to let you know, does this have an auto home package policy? Is there an umbrella built in, and so on? So that's the basics of the home policy here. With that, I'm going to move on to a policy that is similar to the home policy. It's renter's insurance. And that's for those of you who live, say, in a home or in an area that maybe you're on base housing, or maybe you're just living in an area where you rent a home and you don't own. So renter's insurance is there. It's basically a home policy with the home kicked out. And it covers the personal property as well as the personal property as well as the liability. So again, coverage for your personal property. Also covers additional, so this is an additional expense beyond base housing. In the past, your base housing or part of your BAH used to cover the cost for renter's insurance or cover renter's insurance. It does not anymore. As of 2016, I believe, fiscal year 2016, Congress did away with that as part of a cost-saving measure. And so anybody with renter's insurance will need to pay out of pocket on that. Renter's insurance is a little different than home, where it covers 16 what they call named perils or named coverages. The most important ones are listed below: fire, lightning, wind, theft, vandalism. There's others, obviously there's 16 of them, but those are the most important. They're probably the most prudent. As well, liability and medical are covered just like they would be on the home: dog bite, slip and fall accidents, and other negligence. So the renter's policy is similar to the home. It just doesn't cover the home structure that you live in itself. Now, some endorsements that are on here. One, replacement costs. Just like on the home, you want to make sure your renter's policy is covered by replacement cost. If you don't, you're at that actual cash value level, and you might be only getting 30 cents for your socks, and you might be only getting, $2 for your electronics. Make sure you get that endorsement on there. It's just a little more to add it on any policy. And believe me, if you have a claim, you will need it. Some companies, especially the companies that deal with the military, that are focused on the military, that service the military, will actually take this a step further and offer a comprehensive package. So companies that deal with the military go in and say, hey, our clients need a little more. They may offer option to you, such as accidental breakage, water damage or flood built into the policy, earthquake built into the policy, and mysterious disappearance. And in a little bit here, when we talk about the PCS move, all of this will come as why it's very important to maybe consider a policy that has something like this if you are a renter or just need personal property coverage. That some of these items will be very important moving forward. Now, One aspect that's kind of been big in the community that I wanted to address, and it's kind of out of place, but it's not, is mold. So mold, I know, has been an issue that has been popping up around, especially with on-base housing. I've noticed in the articles, I know our company's gotten calls for different quotes on the issue to talk about what insurance covers with mold and what doesn't. So I do want to address it here. With mold, unfortunately, coverage depends on the source, and I'm going to focus on-post housing for this, or on-base housing. For insurance, personal insurance, renter's insurance, if you're on base, to be covered for your insurance to cover mold on a property, it has to be due to the result of a covered loss. So one of those 16 items, mainly water items such as a storm or a pipe bursting in the wall, water gets in the house, causes mold to your personal property, then the policy will kick in and cover that. But unfortunately, if you move into a house that already has mold in the ductwork, mold in the home, and you call the insurance company and say, hey, there's mold in my house, they're going to ask, was there a storm? Was there a water event? Did something happen to cause it? The minute you say, I don't know, they're not going to cover it. And that's just, unfortunately, the way it is. Now, doing the research I did, there is potential reimbursement through the government housing office. So if anybody's in this situation, that is the direction I would go to. But again, this is dealing with on-base housing. So make sure that you know what your policy says, though, because again, I'm going based on what generally the industry runs, but you always want to check with your insurance professional regarding your individual policy, or check the language just to make sure your policy doesn't cover more. However, it's highly unlikely that they're going to go farther than what I've got here, that the mold has to be due to a covered loss. And I'll be happy to answer any clarifying questions at the end on that. Renter's insurance, here's the declarations page again. The top is the same as the home insurance, or very similar. Down at the bottom, you can see that the location is there, and then they kicked off the homeowner portion and the other structures portion, and we're left with the personal property, the loss of use, liability, medical. The deductibles tend to be lower on renter's insurance. You can usually get down to $500 and sometimes $250 instead of like a home where it might be at $1,000. And then the policy premium is there. So as you can see, again, very similar to the home policy. Now, with the personal property, not all personal property is equal under a home policy. Some of it may need to be scheduled. So there's two types of personal property. There's the property that you bring into your home that's pretty basic, your computers, clothes, bikes, dishes, linens, furniture, appliances, and so on. That's all covered under the home policy or the renter's policy. The only limitation is up to the policy limit. If you have $80,000 on your renter's policy, that's where the limit will end. If you have $250,000 on your home policy, that's where the limit will end. But some of the items, like jewelry, art, your spouse's class rings, or your class rings, depending on who's on, watches, any type of collection, coin collection, stamp, baseball cards, firearms, silverware. I mean, there's a few more, but several of these items have limitations on the policy, like jewelry. It'll say limit of theft of $500, meaning that if there's a fire, they'll cover your jewelry under personal property. If someone breaks in your house and steals your jewelry, they're only going to cover up to $500. Art oftentimes is limited. Watches fall under the jewelry category. Class rings fall under the jewelry category. So you need to make sure that your personal property is covered appropriately. So the best thing to do is potentially schedule the personal property. And again, this is for your high valued items. If you have just some random jewelry here and there, I wouldn't worry about it. But what if you have a class ring valued at $1,000 or $2,000? What if you have an engagement ring or an engagement and wedding band that's valued at over $10,000? Your home policy is not going to have the appropriate coverage. Your renter's policy is not going to have enough coverage for that, especially if it's stolen. So, two options you have. You can, one, add the personal property to your homeowner's or renter's policy or your condo policy. Your insurance professional can help you schedule that onto your home policy. You simply list out the item, list out the amount you want it insured for, it goes in, it does raise the premium up, but now it's better protected because you're listing it on the policy instead of just putting it into the personal property pool. The other option is to get a standalone policy. Some companies offer just a separate policy called the valuable items policy that you can add numerous items to it that are in that gray area where it's not necessarily covered by the home and you need better protection. So those are two ways that you can do it. Each company handles that differently. Some have it on the policy, some have a separate policy for you. It just depends on who you're dealing with. The nice thing about that is that it not only includes everything that a home or a renter's policy will cover, but it's going to add things like breakage. So let's say you have a diamond ring and the diamond falls out, or you have an art piece on the wall and then you have friends over and their kid comes up and crayons it, puts a hole through it, whatever the case may be. Breakage is covered under a scheduled personal property policy where it's not covered with a home or a renter's policy, unless you have that comprehensive package we talked about earlier. Mysterious disappearance for scheduled items. That's if, oh, I put my ring down, I put my $20,000 ring down, or $20,000 ring down, and I don't know where it went. It's gone. Nobody stole it, but I don't know where it went. That's actually covered under the policy as well. So it'll be covered for that stated amount that you list for the item. Now, some of these may require an appraisal. So if your item gets over $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, depending on the company, you may need to go get it appraised so you can prove the value of it. But it's a good idea to do that too, because if you ever lost it, you'd want to know what it's valued at also. So scheduling your personal property is an idea or something to consider, especially if you have jewelry or rings valued over $500, $2,500, or $5,000, just depending on what your internal limits of your home policy or renter's policy will cover. So again, check with your insurance professional, see what you've got for your home, and then see if you need to schedule any of your personal property. To give you an example, this at the top, we looked at this declarations page earlier. This was the second page of our home insurance. But if you look at the top there where it says Coverage C, Personal Property, Special Limits of Liability, you can go down and see each one of those sections, section A, B, D, C, have limits. That's the most they'll pay out. So for cash or money, the most this policy would pay out is $250. You might have $5,000 laying around. There's a fire that goes away. They're only going to give you $250. Rare coins, currency, collectibles, they're only going to give you $500 for that. Theft of jewelry, $500. That's why it's important to consider scheduling those items on a personal property policy. Plus, those policies, those scheduled item policies cover you worldwide. So it's not just in your house. You could lose your ring in Japan or Europe, and they would cover it. Well, I lost it in Europe. I don't know where it went. They'll cover that on the policy. So that's worldwide coverage that will occur with those items. Now, for your home, for your renters, your PCS moves. What to look for, what should you do? Well, some important tips. One, and I'm hoping that the research I found led that if you do government contracted moving, the company will insure up to a maximum amount of $50,000. Now, for many of you, that may not be enough. For some, it might be. But a lot of people, the one thing I found is most people underestimate how much personal property they have. If you have kids, oh man, I've got 3 kids of my own. I have more kid personal property than I know what to do with. So the government contracted moving company will insure up to $50,000. But what happens if you need more? What happens if that's just, not enough? Your BAH does not provide money for your property during your move. So just know that any insurance you take out or have prior, just like the renter's policy, it will not be, that's not designated for that. That will come out of pocket. So one thing to do to protect yourself in this move is take a video or photo of your expensive items, your TV, your furniture, your high value items. A coworker of mine recently last year went through a move, and they arrived at their new location, and some of their furniture was damaged. They were told, well, that was like that when we picked it up. They happen to have pictures of everything, and were able to communicate and work with their transportation office rep, and were able to get that rectified where they were able to get paid out through the moving company. But it took some time. Had they not had that proof, it probably wouldn't have worked well for them. So anybody who's moving, do make sure you take pictures of your stuff. Even if you're not moving, I would recommend taking pictures or a video of your high value items. Save those to the cloud, save those in an email. And the reason for that is if you ever do have a loss, you don't necessarily need proof, but you've got it here. Oh, this is what I had in this room. This is what I had in this room. So you can itemize those out and give those to your claims adjuster when you have that at a time of loss. You'll know what you need to replace. So, but for PCS moves, definitely take photos or videos of everything. That way you have proof of the condition that they were in when they left your house. Now, with property in transit and private insurance, I don't know of a private insurance company out there, private insurance meaning somebody that you have a policy through for your home or renter's insurance, that will cover rough handling or packing by the movers. Once your property goes into the care, custody, and control of the movers, it's on them. If they break things, that's who unfortunately needs to cover that loss. So with your property in transit, insurance is not going to cover rough handling. Now, most private insurance carriers will not cover mysterious disappearance. The reason for that is the way the contract is written. They must have a known date or a known situation of what happened. There has to be a police report. Otherwise, you just say, well, I lost this. I don't know where it went. Most private insurance companies are not going to cover it. Now, with that, there are companies, again, out there that specialize in military insurance, that work with military and have that comprehensive package that you can look to add that on, that will add mysterious disappearance on there, that will help to add some of that breakage coverage on there. So just know that there are companies that can help. You're going to want to check with the policy that you have to see if that coverage is on there or available. And if not, there are options out there for you. Now, what private insurance, whether it's military specialists or not, may cover is things like fire, storm damage, and theft of property in a stolen vehicle. So let's say that truck that your items are on catches on fire, or maybe the warehouse catches on fire. There's storm damage, a tornado picks the truck up and throws it. There are reasons to continue your personal property coverage through that time. Also, with the government movers only covering for $50,000, you might have $100,000 worth of items. It's a good idea to keep the insurance through that move to make sure that your items are covered for as much as possible. The most important thing, though, is to check with your insurance professional 1 week prior to moving. The reason for that is that the insurance must be in place prior to the movers showing up. If you call after the movers are there, they will not cover anything. So call at least a week prior to moving. And as well, if you have a renter's or a home policy, maybe you just sold your home policy, make sure you keep that home policy in effect through the move, because there are provisions on the home policy that will cover 30 days from your move to make sure that you have coverage for your personal property. Your new home will not necessarily pick up coverage outside of the house. So the old policy, you might need to leave it in place a week after you have sold your home, just to make sure you get your property there. Now, real brief, I'll just run through auto insurance because it does factor in as well, especially if your PCS move is taking you from state to state. Auto insurance is comprised of bodily injury and property damage. That's the basic part of the policy that's often mandated by the state. That's if you hit somebody and cause injury to them. Uninsured motorist or underinsured motorist coverage is if someone hits you without insurance. You need to make sure you have money to protect yourself in that situation. Physical damage coverage, often called full coverage, is comprehensive, which covers things like theft, vandalism, hail, deer hits, nature events, and then collision, where if you were to run into somebody else to help repair your vehicle. And then various states have medical payments, or what's called personal injury protection, to protect you and anybody in your vehicle, give you medical coverage for accidents that occur. So that's the basics of auto insurance. Some endorsements that are important. I left the comp and collision, or the comprehensive and collision, on there because it's not often required, but it's a good idea to have, especially if your vehicle is newer than 10 years old. Glass coverage is important to consider. That will allow you to get your glass replaced if there's a rock chip or a crack for less than your comprehensive deductible, oftentimes $50 to $0. Roadside service, I think it's extremely important unless you have AAA. If you break down, need gas, lock your keys in your car, they'll come out and take care of it at no cost. for the roadside service. And then rental car reimbursement, that is if you are in an accident or your car is being repaired due to a claim, they'll rent a car for you. I'd recommend more $40 a day on that coverage or higher just because of the cost of rental cars. There's gap coverage, which will cover the difference between the loan if you're in a totaled accident and you owe more on the car than what you get through the insurance. Original parts to make sure you get original parts on your car. And then there's some others like new vehicle replacement, accident ticket and forgiveness. So there's various options to have on there. My three most important ones here are roadside service and towing, rental car reimbursement, and glass coverage. Those are the ones that I look at the most. The comp and collision, if you have a loan on your car, you need to have it. If not, 10 years old or newer, I would say hey, have it. Anything after 10, you consider taking that off. With the PCS move, again, always inform your insurance professional of a move because each state that you move to will have different laws and each insurance company will want you to move it to that state that you live in. If they find out you've moved and you haven't switched that yet, a lot of times you can find yourself non-renewed at the renewal date, at the next renewal date because they want you to get to that new state. Pricing can change by state or by zip code, and laws can change by state or by zip code. So even if you're with a company that's like, oh, all we do is change your address and we'll move your insurance there, your pricing will adjust because they have different prices depending on where you live. And I'm here to tell you, I've done this for enough years. There's not one company out there that has the best price everywhere. There's some that seem like it, but they don't. I've quoted all over this country, and there are pricing changes yearly. They go up, they go down. So anytime you move is a great time to get out your policy, see what you have, see if you have any holes in it, especially on the auto side, and make sure that you've got the right coverage and shop your insurance around. It doesn't cost anything, takes a little bit of time. So with PCS moves, just make sure that you're staying on top of where you're at. Keep your policy up to date so you don't get non-renewed. Deck page real quick on this. Again, at the top is the name, address, phone number, or the name and address, the agent phone number. You get down to the rated drivers as well as the cars that are insured. And then you can see there as it goes down, you've got your liability limits of $500,000, your medical payments of $3,000. In this state, there's personal injury protection, probably of $4,000 or $5,000. Uninsured motorist coverage of $500,000. Your comprehensive coverage at $750 deductible with full safety glass, so that would mean a $0 deductible on the safety glass. Your collision deductible of $750, your rental car reimbursement, and your roadside assistance. And then the year premium is at the bottom. So you can see here that, again, every deck page is going to look a little different, but it's going to have that same basic information there. So you can kind of go down and say, hey, what are my coverages and what are they through? So other than that, that's the end of my prepared remarks. I appreciate your guys' patience and time. I hope it was educational. For any other additional educational resources or support, and I'm here to answer questions after this, but anything after this, please feel free to visit our website at www.afi.org. Give us a call at 1-800-518-1512. Any of our representatives will be happy to answer your questions, and always follow us on social media at the links you see there as well. So with that, I'm going to open it up, and whatever questions I can help field for you, I'd love to answer.
All right, thank you so much. So it was very, very informational. I always learn something different. And when I think that I already have everything covered, I'm like, oh, I guess not. Now I'm missing something else. But you know what? We had a really good question. If someone was asking if you know if Alaska offers some sort of earthquake insurance.
I don't know if Alaska, like California has a separate government-based insurance program for earthquake. I don't know, I've never heard of that with Alaska, but what you can do is call your insurance company and they should be able to add earthquake via an endorsement. Now the cost, depending on where you live, could be higher or lower based on the seismic activity there, but the company that you're with should be able to add that coverage on to your policy. The deductibles for earthquake, depending on the company, could go as low as 5% of your home value, 10%, 15 or 20, just depending on what the companies offer. So the higher the deductible, the less the cost, the lower the deductible, the more of the cost. but they should be able to add that to your policy by simple endorsement. I do not know of a separate, there are separate companies that offer earthquake insurance. I will say there are. However, they're what's called a lot of times they're non-admitted companies. And those means they play by a different rule book. I don't want to get too much into it, but there's pros and cons to that. So just make sure you know what you're getting into with that and look that up. So there are companies out there that can offer it, but I would first go to your insurance company to see if they can add that by endorsement. That's the safest, that's the best way to go.
Awesome. Sounds good. We have another question. It says that all of her stuff is in storage. Is it possible to insure it?
Yes. So not with everybody though. So you want to be careful. So again, if you have an insurance agent or a company, talk to them, tell them, hey, I've got stuff in storage. Again, companies, there are companies out there, especially ones that specialize in military insurance, that know that their clients' information or their property goes in storage a lot, or they might have some in storage in, say Virginia, they might have some in Europe, and they might have some at a house somewhere else. I mean, it could be spread out all over. Some companies don't have limitations as to where it's at, so you could have everything in a storage unit, and you can get a policy that will cover that, like a personal property policy or renter's policy. Your home policy, if you have a home insurance, generally has a limitation for how much personal property is away from the home, and it's often 10%. So let's say you have a home policy and you have $100,000 of personal property on that home policy, they'll cover $10,000 in that storage unit, but anything over 10 they won't cover. So just know that home policies will have some of that built in. Renters policies should have some of that built in, but there are companies out there that will cover that up to 100%. You could have 3 storage units and they'll cover it across the board. It just depends on the company.
That's perfect. Awesome. We have another question. We have someone that is PCS in overseas or heading to Germany.
Okay.
What about insurance for that kind of situation?
Again, I hate to always go back to it's going to depend on the company, but your traditional U.S. insurers will oftentimes say, nope, it's state by state. Oh, I'm moving to Guam, they're not going to cover. I'm moving to the Virgin Islands, I'm moving to Germany, it's not going to cover. There are companies, again, that deal with military folk, and if you are just talking about personal property policy, a lot of their coverages are based on worldwide coverage. So you could be in Guam, you could be in Germany, you could be in Japan, you could be, for that matter, in Afghanistan, and the personal property would be covered. So there are companies out there that will help you with that on a personal property basis. Auto's the same way. Most U.S. insurers will not cover outside of the United States. Trips into Canada are allowed, and they have no problem with that, but they want you to come back. If you take your car overseas, I think there's 1 or 2 companies that I know of that will help piggyback that on there or may potentially cover that. So if you have one of those companies, I definitely call them to make sure, but I would say most U.S. carriers do not. So again, companies that deal more with military are going to have more of those options. Your general U.S.-based companies probably will not.
Wonderful. That's great information. Yeah, we have some people thinking because it was very informative. Some people getting ready to call their insurance tomorrow. So we are very thankful that you were able to learn a lot from this webinar. So if there is anyone else that have any more questions, please go ahead and send them to me by chat right now. And in the meantime, thank you so much, sir. It was an amazing webinar. I think that we all got to learn a lot. I've been a military spouse for 19 years and moved too many times. We purchased our new home here in Texas. And let me tell you, when it was time to get in insurance, it was so complicated because there was so much that we needed to learn and be careful that we were covered and whatever we were not. When I was a younger military spouse and we were moving every time, I can tell you that probably for the first 2 to 3 moves, we didn't have any kind of insurance, not even a renter's insurance, because we had no clue. I guess it never crossed our mind that we need to insure our things until somebody asked us, so do you have insurance? And I was like, for what? So sometimes is the fact that we don't think beyond that probably we need to insure our things because we are being moved by the military. So the assumption is that we'll be covered. But what if not everything is covered? And the more that your family is growing, the more things you are accumulating. And you know what? Nowadays, everything is technology. Everything is the smartphones and the iPads and the this and the that. So if we sit down and we make a list of all the things that we own, even if you only have, if it's you and your spouse, you will be surprised to just consider the list and making a list of everything that you own, and you may not be covered by those $50,000. So, like I said, when I was younger, we had no clue, and we moved a few times without insurance. And now that we purchased a home, and I've been married for 19 years, I had to learn so much when we purchased a home, when we purchased a policy for the house. So thank you so much. It was very, very informative. I don't know if you want to add anything else.
No, other than that, just make sure I'll just say, just make sure you check your policies, check with your insurance carriers, because everybody's policy is different. They're probably 80-90% the same, but it's that 10% that will make the difference in what you need or what you don't need. So just make sure to check, ask the questions. And again, there are companies out there that a lot of the questions tonight about moving overseas and that, there are companies out there that work, that can handle that, and you don't have to do too much. It's nothing crazy. It's like, oh, how much do you need, and we can get, and they can get going. So just know that there are companies out there that can help.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And we don't have any more questions, so I am going to mention the two winners of the 2 gift cards. We have some kind of software where we actually enter all the names, and we are able to pick 2 winners. So the first winner is Megan Sanchez, and the second winner is Sophie Murillo. So I just, on the chat, I just entered my email address. It's info@milspouseadvocacynetwork.org. So Megan and Sophie, please email me and let me know you're one of the winners, and I will go ahead and send you a gift card right away, sponsored by Armed Forces Insurance. So thank you so much, sir. It was amazing. The webinar is being recorded, and it's going to be in our website, and we're going to be posting it all over social media in case if you want to go back and look at something that you remember, but you want more details. And like Mr. Palmer mentioned, go ahead and head to Armed Forces Insurance website. They have a lot of educational resources and support, and you can always get a hold of us. And we have our mentors, and we have people that we can actually connect to and answer questions and link you with someone at Armed Forces Insurance for additional information. So, sir, thank you so much for everything. We appreciate your time and helping us understand more about all the policies, the differences, and the reason why it's important to have them.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I truly appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. And thank you to all the people that joined us tonight. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, and we hope you join us to our next webinar very soon. Thank you so much.